I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everybody to the August 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board. Our first item of business is called meeting to order, to have a quorum, and to approve the meeting minutes of July 10th, 2019. Let's to review those. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion we approve.
Motion to
I'll
approve.
second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. First item of business, motion to nominate and elect a chair for a one-year term. We'll turn it over to the city attorney at this point.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a motion to nominate and elect a chairman?
I make a motion that nominate Earl.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Turn this meeting back over to chairman.
Thank you, sir. Our next item of business is a motion to nominate and elect a vice chair for a one-year term. So we'll entertain a motion to nominate a vice chair.
I make a motion we nominate Joseph Subat for the vice chair.
We have a motion to elect Mr. Joseph Subat
Yes, sir.
for vice chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion does pass. Congratulations. Welcome. First item under old business, waterway buffer variance presented by Ahmed S. Omar, property located between 143 Elm Street and 201 Nelson Drive. Tax map 17M, Group C, parcel 23.01. Ms. Catherine.
Mr. Omer was unable to be here tonight. They sent me all the information that you guys requested at our July 10th meeting. Nothing really new. So again, this is the plat. You'll find this in your packet showing, so this was the original, the whole piece was one property. This was the original property. This piece was parceled off, and that was approved back in, it's been a little while. So we had some planning commission notes for you. You guys had asked for those. So it came up in September, October of 17. Mr. Omer decided to withdraw at that point so that he could get some ducks in a row, some things that the planning commission had asked him to look at and take care of. So he took a little time to get those things taken care of, and he brought it back in February of 18. At that point, you have those notes in your, or the submission that Bo sent in your packet as well. And so he got that approval for that minor subdivision, split that plat into two. There were just a couple small technical items, neither of which related to stormwater, that he had to fix, and he got those fixed by the next meeting and got his approval. And you'll see those notes, those meeting minutes in your packet. It's the last thing before the plat. So he did get his approval. He did get all technical items were addressed that he had, so he got his approval for that. And the only notes that are on the plat, which is the only thing that's legally binding anyway, is the note 8, where it says there's no work to be done in the buffer zone unless he gets approval from us. That's actually a moot point to be on the plat. That's our city law anyway, so even if it wasn't on the plat, that would still be a rule. So what we have is that there's a lady that is wanting to put a home on the property. She needs a little bit of a variance with the buffer zone for the actual property itself, but mostly it has to do with being able to get equipment around, because the law says you can't even put equipment within that buffer. So you can't do any work at all within that buffer. So it's not necessarily even that the structure will be all the way into the buffer, it's that they can't get equipment to work. So There's your property. This is gone now, but somewhere along here is where that property split is. You can see this is a tributary to Finch Branch. It's marked as Finch Branch on the plat. That's not exactly 100% accurate. It's actually a tributary to Finch Branch. It does not run 365 days a year. It is an ephemeral stream that runs only in wet weather conditions. This is from the street. So there are no trees in the buffer zone now. These trees here are basically at the top of the bank. So their work would be stopping, within 30 feet. They won't be taking any trees down. It's just grass where they're looking to extend the buffer or get the variance for the buffer zone. So what I did, and you can probably see it more clearly in your packet, is I sketched up by hand what the current building envelope is and the dimensions of that. And then I basically drew out what that new, if we gave them the 30-foot buffer that they're requesting, what the new building envelope would look like. So on the shortest end, it would only be 60 feet in length, the building envelope. So if you look in your packet, and it's also in here, that included the drawings for the manufactured home that they are looking to build. And if you look in your packet, and I'll get to that slide too. Let's see. So that's just a general elevation, just so that you can see what type of home would be going there. If I'm not mistaken, I have to reread it, but I think it was like a 1,500 or 1,600 square foot home. It's not a very large home. But so your total dimensions on what it's 60 feet in length. So there's nowhere on the lot, no way they can work it really onto the lot as is. If they don't get that. Let's see. All right. So if we go back, so right now it's about 30 feet is all they have in width here. They have 81, 82 here, and 50 some odd feet here. So there's no way they could position it that they wouldn't, at least in like a corner or something, be hanging out of the current building envelope. That's why they are in need of the variance, because there's no way to position just this standard one level 1,600 square foot home on that lot and get it within that building envelope. Never mind the fact that you have to have equipment to obviously do the leveling and do the construction, and the law says that that equipment can't go into the buffer zone either. So like I said, once the home is actually put in place, it really won't come outside the building envelope much. The home itself won't. It will be, allowing them to get the equipment in there in order to build the home. So again, that's what you have in your packet.
So clarifying question. So you're saying at the end of construction, the home itself would be inside the zone, but they're asking for the equipment, not necessarily the home.
Well, the home will have to, at least in a corner, bump out a little bit. That's what I'm saying. The lot as it is, if you look, go back one more, sorry. Like it's only 30 feet in this direction and 54 in this. So the house is 27 plus change in one dimension and 60 in the other. So there's nowhere that they can put that perfect rectangle on here that it wouldn't at least hang out a little bit. So again, that's why they'll be, they need that building envelope stretched a little bit, but the bulk of what will go in the buffer will be temporary. It will be that equipment. Once everything is constructed, you'll have some, in this corner, say, but like all of this will go back to being vegetated. It's just grass now, and that's what it'll go back to being, is grass. And as far as it being in the floodplain and all that, those are things that codes will handle, and I will work with Randolph on this one when it comes in, as they set their building envelope, or as they set, where they're going to put their foundation and everything. He and I will work, because he will be coming to me wanting to know, obviously, if they got a variance, what the variance was. And so this won't slip through. I mean, we'll definitely be working together. But this is me standing on the street looking out. This is the head wall here, the pipe. So your center line of your creek is about, running through here, and this is your bank. So like I said, the trees pretty much stop at the bank. They won't be taking down any trees. It's just grass all the way up to nearly the top of the bank. This, it's kind of hard to get a picture of the whole thing. This was after, several weeks ago when we had some really heavy rain, some heavy downpours. I went out because I wanted to see what conditions that stream, what properties that stream took on when it's being, used in a heavy rain event. We still had easily 8 feet to the top of the bank. So I don't think this is going to be common to overtop. I think it's going to have to be some pretty severe storms for it to overtop, so I don't think that'd be an issue anyway. But even if it was, I mean, it's irrelevant really because, you are allowed to build in the flood zone. It's noted on their plat, if you pay attention to the plat, what the base elevation is and that they have to build at least a foot above it. So they'll have to stick with that. That's just the law. And this is just across the street. The creek runs right through here. And I'm not exactly sure how this but it wasn't marked on their plat as a creek because it was an older plat, and since it's just a tributary, it wasn't noted on their plat back from, whatever something, 60-something. And so they didn't have to jump through any hoops of any kind, but essentially you've got the same thing because here's the creek running here. This is a new house that's going up right now. So really the difference is, new laws have taken effect since then, of course. There was a new survey and something was noted on the survey that would not have been on the original. It's not on the original survey from the 60s when that was all one lot. So that's, kind of where we're getting the hang up. But obviously a house there would do no more damage today than it would have had it been placed there 40 years ago. I mean, the floodplain is the floodplain.
So on the technical items that was sent over from the planning commissioner and the planner, the number 19, 20, and 21, isn't that the whole reasoning for the technical items to be on there? It's not saying that they're in favor of...
Well, that's just labeling, yeah. That to note it because under new laws, since the surveyor had put that there was a creek there, they had to mark the top of the bank because you need to know the limits, how wide the creek is. Just the center line's not enough information. So they had him add that because all it had, I assume, was the center line. The buffer had to be marked. Again, it didn't change anything. It was just the fact that was just some information that is good to have on the plat. And then 21 is that note that's on there that says they have to come through us before they do the work. But again, like I said, that note, that's the law anyway. So even if that note hadn't been put on, we'd still be sitting here having this discussion today because that's just Laverne law. That's in our municipal code. So,
So is it on the topo map that it is a named creek?
right, on the plat, which is what, yes, is legally binding. Yeah, you have the plat with you in your packet, and yes, it is noted, it's marked, and that buffer zone is marked with that note that says you have to have the variance. So that is essentially what we're asking for, is for that variance. And I will remind the board, like we discussed in July, the state requirement is 30 feet. We in Laverne chose several years back before my time here, and I've been here nearly 5 years, there was an ordinance passed in anticipation. At the time, there was a new permit coming out from the state, and it was anticipated that they were going to put a 60-foot stream buffer in place. So in anticipation of that change, we went ahead and tried to get ahead of the game and make that change so that we would be in compliance as soon as that new permit came out. Well, that permit came out, and now another even has come out since then, the one we're operating under now, and they never did actually make that change. It is still 30 feet. So we have been above and beyond what the state would require for some time. And in my 5 years here, or almost, this is actually only the second buffer zone variance that I've ever had. So this isn't something that happens often. The first one was several years ago. It was my first year here, and it was a commercial area and, had a little more involved. This being a residence, I've been out on the site many times. Bo went out actually when all this was sort of taking place back in 18. We had some extremely hard rains, and he went out, same thing. And I asked him, I said, well, what did you see? Do you have any pictures for me or anything? And he says, I'd have to dig, and he didn't find the pictures. He said, but it didn't overtop even then, and that was when we had some very, very heavy downpours. So I feel confident that that's not going to be a common issue.
I mean, that whole area is common to retaining water.
And,
Well, the whole area is in a floodplain. Okay.
and for history, this particular house that's being built is on the higher side of the bank than the.
It's still in the floodplain though.
I
That's the
understand.
point. On paper, they're all still the same, is what I'm saying.
And on paper, we've been presented with a plat that went through planning commission that we have to follow, is kind of thing. If it was labeled as a tributary in planning, then we wouldn't even be at this point, but, fact being is that they did label it as a creek.
And that was at the surveyor's discretion.
And that was it.
But we here have the authority to make that change, is what I'm saying. And that's what the gentleman is requesting. Again,
And also in planning, when discussing this item with Mr. Ahmed,
Omer,
Omer,
Ahmed Omer,
we were very specific in regards to, you're very close to the buffer, you're not gonna have a very big building envelope to start with, and he chose to proceed forward. If it changed hands at some point, it'd be one thing, but we're dealing with the exact same individual.
correct.
It's the same gentleman, so, and he's choosing to put a 1,600 square foot home there. When
Yes.
the average homes in that area are 1,200 square feet.
Well, he wouldn't be able to put a 1,200 square foot home in that area because of the dimensions. It wouldn't be able to be done. Now, I cannot speak for Mr. Omer, just chatting off record kind of stuff with Bo and Adam, because they would have been at those planning commissions where I would not have been. And I have discussed it with Adam. Adam also sees no problem with it. I've discussed it with Kyle Brown. He also sees no problem with it. Their mindset, I believe, was, yes, it had to be written this way because of our law, but they also didn't foresee an issue with them getting a variance. So it didn't seem like a huge hurdle when they put it on there. Now, I can't speak for every member of the planning commission or not, because I'm not on the planning commission, and I can't speak for what was discussed when this went through, earlier this year than part of last year. All I can speak for is the information that I have, that I'm responsible for, and,
Is there, in his reasoning for not being here tonight as well?
Well, I didn't think that was my business. I didn't ask.
Oh, I didn't know, I thought maybe.
Generally, they touch base, ask for deferral, something of some nature.
Well, he did not ask for a deferral because he felt like he had all the, there's really nothing more for him to say, no questions that I couldn't answer. If you choose to defer, then that's obviously the discretion of the board, but for Mr. Omer, he had no reason to.
Very good. Do we have any more specific questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Please, sir.
So I actually drove by this home in heavy rain, and like she was saying, I didn't really see the water coming up over, but I also did see some puddles where, where it kind of gets big.
Standing?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah, I had some puddles of standing water, but it wasn't really anywhere near the existing home. But it might with the new home. That according to what it looks like from these documents. So
If you could go back possibly to the picture of the old structure that was on that property years ago. Did you have one
It
picture?
was an aerial.
It should have been a street, not a street picture, Mr. Church.
That's the one. That's
Yeah, the
That's
garage
the
is gone now, that's.
yeah, that's gone. So in those other pictures, when you're looking at the grass and you can see that piece of concrete, that's the pad that was on, that shed was on.
That garage actually used to carry the water line,
Right.
where
Well,
the water came up to.
And where they'll rip all that out, and a new pad will be put in place for the home, and that pad will be, again, a foot above the 100-year flood elevation, because that, again, is law. I mean, that's what the city of Laverne requires in,
So how high would that actually make it from ground level?
let me look at the plat.
Myself, man.
if it wasn't too,
The minimum finished floor elevation, if you look on your plat, inside the building envelope, you see an asterisk, it says min FFE, that means minimum finished floor elevation. 606.5 feet would be what the elevation would have to be. And if you look, you can also see where that 100-year flood zone is delineated. And you can see it goes well into the original lot, where the current home is. It goes next door. I mean, if you zoomed out, I mean, really it's that whole area. I mean, right along, it's along a creek. So anywhere you have a creek, you're going to have a flood zone. Anywhere you have a natural body of water, you're going to have a flood zone. Tributary, creek, river.
And we're just trying to protect everybody.
Yeah, so, but I didn't print that out necessarily because, again, you guys have lived here, most of y'all have lived here a pretty long while, so I figured you probably, obviously know all of that, but
Just trying to prevent our city services from having to do any type of water rescue, anything of that nature. Because from familiarity, from history, I do know that particular lot.
yes, and there are certainly some
There's 3
areas.
lots there, right there on the end. Those 3 on that side, it gets really crazy in there.
And it does take an extreme measure for it to happen, but it does happen.
And I understand that, and certainly it is the board's discretion whether or not they give the variance or not. I would like to just mention one other thing, though, when you're speaking of the rescues. These houses, when they were built, they did not have to build at a minimum finished floor elevation because that wasn't a rule that was in place. So quite frankly, he's really in the best situation because under these new laws that we have in place now, he should be the last one to flood because he's built his house high enough that the water won't get in it. Now, will he get it halfway up his tires on his truck when he's in his in the driveway? That will still happen.
I have a question
Actually,
for,
get citizens out
I have a question for Bruce.
Please, sir.
Bruce, maybe, can you enlighten us why the city took the 60-foot?
Well, it's just like what Ms. Catherine stated, when we originally put the stormwater stuff in place, we thought the state was going to go with a 60-foot rule. So we went ahead and went with that 60-foot rule, and then they've never approved that amendment.
Do you know when that was?
I don't recall right off the top of my head. But I can verify that is what happened. I do
It's been a
remember.
while, like sometime in '03 or '04. It was already in place when I started in January '05.
Any other questions? With that, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I make a motion we deny due to the technical items noted. The 60-foot variance is, it's spelled out in the technical items to the planning commission, and so according to the notes here, it's passed over. So I feel that the rule is put in place to protect the state's waterways.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Second? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to ask a question, or?
Yeah, I'm
Please
trying to,
do.
yeah, I'm just trying to think, because I'm just trying to think where I saw those puddles at in relation to this diagram. It's the way I would like to put it.
Motion on the table, read this one, to deny.
What are your thoughts, Mr. Board?
I mean, personally, I'm a delivery driver. I go to all the areas all the time. I mean, yes, there is a bit of standing water over there, but I really don't see it as being too much of an issue, especially with them having to build to the floor elevation. Personally, I feel that we're within state rules, and again, like I said, or as she said, there's, they have to build to the floor elevation. They're going to be in the best position if flooding does occur. And they know that they're building in a flood zone. I personally feel like there isn't really an issue here, but
We have no second.
not for me, no.
Give you a little time, I'm just gonna y'all are fresh at this.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to.
It's still open for discussion.
It is open for discussion.
Will you explain the outline areas with TDEC, the history of the creeks on the burn, the problems that we've had throughout the years with the state? So they have a better understanding what the variances are. The variance isn't there to protect them from flood. The variance is there to protect the creeks and streams of the state waterways.
Correct. The reason you have a buffer zone is to protect, yes, the creeks and streams, because say we're putting in a development, whether it be residential or commercial, without those rules in place, some people would clear that vegetation all the way to the top of the bank. And science has proven that if we keep vegetation, particularly the roots of trees especially, they basically serve as anchors, soil anchors, to hold that bank and stabilize it in place. So we don't want them to go and bulldoze an area all the way up to the bank because that undermines the strength of the soil itself. again, in this instance, not being any trees or anything to take down, that would be irrelevant, but typically that is what your concern is that if you let somebody come in and pull up trees, as you think about it, you can just visualize it in your mind, they're pulling up trees, they're pulling up roots, they're loosening soil, they're weakening that bank, and so as the water comes through, it's very easy for the water to just take that dirt right with it and continue to erode the bank. So that's why those rules were put in place, because again, a lot of people are of the mindset, this is my property, I can do what I want, and they're not thinking about the consequences. And so that's what those buffers are for, they're to protect those banks from erosion. But again, that wouldn't apply in this particular case, but that's what those rules are put in place for.
Thank you. And also to add to that, having been involved in some of the flooding in the city in the past, one of the problems is not necessarily the structure, but the things around the structure. Lawnmowers, children's toys, etc. So now we're going to put a home with accessories in a buffer zone, and when the storm and the flood waters come, it washes all that into our creek. Being that there is a bridge directly next to this property, we're just upping the likelihood that something could get caught in that bridge, possibly back up the water.
And I understand
They cause problems downstream.
I understand your point, but another thing to bear in mind in these neighborhoods that are older, and what would currently be the buffer zone, there have been homes and children's items and all those things in these areas for years, near bridges, near boxes. So this isn't necessarily a new issue.
And we're to protect and try to prevent those actions. And yeah, that's why we have to work together.
And also for me, it also comes down to which direction he plans to build the home in, because
it has to face the
it could, based upon the way that I saw it, it could flow into the neighbor's yard and then cause more flooding in their yard, which would possibly put the neighbor's place in danger, just depending upon when the construction is complete.
Anytime you build something up, you're redirecting water.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's my own, that's my main concern is
So as of right now, we have a motion on the table to deny. If we have a second, I will entertain a second. Proceed forward.
honestly, I would really like Mr. Elmer here to kind of give the last bit of information.
Perfect.
So I make a motion to.
One second.
Oh, sorry.
We have a motion on the table. We do not have a second. I will entertain another motion.
Then I make a motion to defer until Mr. Elmer could come back to us with a,
May I tell him what information he needs to be able to bring?
just where particularly he wants to bring the home to actually being in, kind of like in relation to this big picture, which direction he'd like the home in.
Well, Bruce, please correct me, just so that I can go ahead and give you a bit. Correct me.
Well, we're on a motion right now, so we have a motion to defer until Mr. Omar can provide us with further information.
Well, I can give you that information is what I'm trying to say, if you would like it now.
If you could.
Okay. The home will face Nelson, so the rectangle will go this way. And where it will be, that's part of what the buffer will change is it will expand the building envelope. So where these dotted lines, you'll see those on your plat that you have a copy of, that's what those dotted lines are. That's your building envelope, meaning the structure has to go within those dotted lines. So you can't build property line to property line. We have offset required. You have to be so far off the road, so far off the neighboring property line. So that's what those dashed lines are. And so you'll see what I drew in by hand would be the new dashed line. So they would just extend over the 30 feet. So that's where the home has to be in that area.
I have a motion to defer. We have a second.
I'll actually withdraw.
Motion has been withdrawn.
Then I will also second all.
We'll need a motion one more time.
I make a motion to deny
We have a motion to deny based on the items you stated earlier, sir.
items, as stated earlier, the technical items presented by the city planner.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Ms. Green. Still green.
Yes, my name is Green.
Okay, just making sure. We don't see each other.
Unless it's a proposal.
No.
Okay. Would
We
you like
don't see
us,
each other often enough to.
would you like me to move on to item 4?
Item 4, review of the annual report for 2018-19 permit year. Please.
So what you have also, part of your packet, it's going to have the state seal in the top left corner. It says to Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, our annual report. That is something that we are required to submit to the state on a yearly basis, no later than September 30th. So you can, I won't stand here and read it to you. I mean, you all had it, but it basically just asks general information about what our department, what our MS4 program has been doing, has done, is currently doing, and will plan to do in the future. It's really, and actually everything that's in here, as I kind of go over, the next item will be our program status and updates. It'll touch on actually most of these things, basically just how we operate. What do we have in place for public education? How many illicit discharges have we had to cite people for? Have we had to shut anybody down or do anything like that? You know, has everyone been compliant? What actions have we had to take? So it's just a very general overview of that. How many outfalls that we have, and what an outfall is where the water drains and it finally goes into the stream, the creek. So like every inlet wouldn't be an outfall, where that inlet finally makes its way to it comes out when it deposits into the creek would be an outfall. So we count those. It asks about mapping. It asks about our public works and municipal work, like are we following the same procedures that we require other permit applicants to, which of course we do. So it's just a very general, it's just a summary of basically our program for the year, and we give that to the state yearly. We're also audited once every permit cycle, which is 5 years. We had for the last permit cycle, about 2.5 years ago, we had our audit, came through it with flying colors, no marks. And so we have, just continued to do what we've been doing and try to improve in any place that we see. We certainly are trying to add more public education elements. And again, when we go over the department, the program status, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But if anyone has any questions about the actual annual report, I'm happy to answer those.
Really good.
Looks good? Okay.
Very good. We'll move on. Everyone's okay? Move on to number 5, discussions, stormwater program status and update.
Okay. So, as we were talking about before, there was a new permit that was put out by the state. There were some legal issues with it. Some people chose to defer into going under coverage with that new permit. But again, because of the way we run things, we're a little stricter, and we fell into compliance with it as it was. So we went ahead and adopted that. I filled out our notice of intent. We received our notice of coverage back from the state in February of 2017. So we're going into our 3rd year there. Part of what we are responsible for in order to keep us in compliance with the state, there are 6 minimum measures of compliance that the state calls out: public education and outreach, public participation and involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site runoff control, and post-construction or permanent stormwater runoff, and then our pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So I'm just going to quickly go through and tell you how we address those 6 minimum measures. Again, the report is required. We just discussed that. That's submitted to TDEC. That year actually follows our fiscal years, July 1 through June 30th. So the report that you just looked at was July 1 of 18 through June 30th of 19. And it basically tells them, yes, we're doing what we're supposed to do in regards to these 6 minimum measures. So that's what it looked like, as you just saw. So part 1, our public education and outreach. Part of the way that we meet this requirement is we have a Project WET contract. We partner with the town of Smyrna, the city of Murfreesboro, and Rutherford County, which obviously handles any unincorporated areas within the county. The lady's name is Bonnie Irvin. Brilliant lady, fantastic. She does great, especially with kids and teachers, and so we all pay a part of her salary based on population. So if her salary's $10, and depending on our population, we pay 2 or 3 or 4. So that's how we divide it up. And so she takes care of a lot of our public education. She puts on educational in-services for teachers so that when they go back to our local schools, they're incorporating water responsibility into their curriculum. She comes to our event she's at. You'll see her at Old Timers Day. We always have a booth. You'll see her at our stream cleanups. She wasn't at this last one because I thought the bottom was going to fall. Yeah, if you recall, it was really bad weather, and I thought the bottom was going to fall out, and the materials that she brings are very heavy and it's very large. And I thought, we'll never get it out of the rain in time, we'll ruin it. So I actually called her that morning and told her not to come. But typically she would be there, and you would meet her at that. You will see her if you come to Old Timers Day. She will be there. Actually, that's what those pictures are for. It's very dark. That's me, that's Miss Bonnie. This neat little contraption she has here is a display, and you can see in the picture to the left. So what you do is you basically have a little town down below, and you have your houses and your cars and such, and you demonstrate. You put sponges in it, and that's if you leave it green, and so the kids make it rain, they pour the water over it, the sponges will absorb the water, and the houses are happy, and the cars are happy, and everything's happy. Well, then we take those sponges away, and we just put in a plain piece of plastic, which would be like a parking lot, so water could just run off, and we let the water just run off, and then, oh no, all the houses float away, and the cars float away. It's just a good visual for the kids, and actually a lot of the parents, we got a lot of positive feedback from parents too, like, I never really thought of that. So it's just a way to kind of, encourage them. Plus, and then we also will sometimes sprinkle cinnamon or different pollutants on the ground, and then they get to see what happens to that when it rains. They end up making their way into the streams or creeks, so why it's important, only rain down the drain, not to litter and stuff. So it's actually a really good visual. We got the idea, we saw it at a meeting we went to at the Cumberland River Compact. They had one, and we loved it. We were like, oh my gosh, where did you get this? What is this? And we just had to have one. So we purchased that a couple of years ago, and it's a great, great visual tool. Our cleanup this year, I felt like was fantastic. We talked a second ago that the weather was horrible, and we still had over 100 people come. It was fantastic. We partnered with Comcast Cares this year, and they have already sent us paperwork, invited us to do that again. They enjoyed being a part of it and want to be a part of it again. We collected quite a bit of debris. It was very funny. We pulled out tires and hubcaps and just, we were there. Yeah, so all kinds of stuff.
I actually pulled the tire and the wheelbarrow.
Did you? And we have one kid, I might actually have a picture of him. No, I didn't include it. Shoot. There's our little turtle we found on the way. He was holding a hubcap that he found. But, and we fed them. We had Bob's Barbecue was great to work with. We did lunch for everybody. We gave away a couple of rain barrels. We gave away Parks Maintenance came, McGowan brought his people. They bought some beautiful plants to give away. We gave away some seeds. And then, you'll see in this picture myself and the mayor, and those are some of the Comcast people. And if you look back, you'll see the rain garden. So the week prior, my crew and I went out, we planted a smaller rain garden, which you'll see, it's just behind the multi-purpose building at the trailhead. So the community, we dug out a larger one out there, and so you'll see we had quite a few volunteers that stayed after the cleanup to help us put that rain garden. And I went out there just recently, and actually Monteith sent me some pictures of the one out here just a few days ago. It's beautiful, it looks great. Trailhead that talks about rain gardens. What is a rain garden? Why are they important? And so it was nice to be able to put one there as a visual so they can see that and see one in effect. In an actual cleanup event, like in the spring or whatever, then one being an educational, maybe renting out the multi-purpose building and bringing in Miss Bonnie and other people who might have, and just doing like some educational little booths or something. Like, we're really excited, and I've been brainstorming, Adam and I both, just a lot of ways that we can do more to get the public involved and more excited about, our water conservation efforts. We also participate in 250K Tree Day, which that is the Tennessee Environmental Council that puts that on. We make donations to them, and then they send saplings. The goal is to have 250,000 trees planted, so they have 250,000 seedlings that they give away. We participate, or I go out and participate in an educational, it's actually a field trip that is done in September called Waterfest, and the invitation goes out, I think it's 2nd through 6th grade, 3rd through 6th grade, goes out to all the teachers in Rutherford County, Laverne, Smyrna, and non, and Murfreesboro City Schools as well. And they come out, and it's a field trip, and we have about, it's grown so much. First year we did it, we had 100, 200 kids. I think we had 1,500 last year. It's crazy the number of classrooms. But we have different stations set up, and they learn. I do water sampling with them, it's what I've done with them in the past. We'll have someone from the fishery part came out and showed them some of the cool fish that are in some of our local rivers and streams and such. And then we have macroinvertebrates. They go and they scoop up and see what kind of little critters they find in the water. Just a lot of different things for them to look at. It's really great. The kids love it. It's a fun outdoor field trip for them and very educational. I will go, as will Adam. We went last year, we'll go again this year to the Tennessee Stormwater Association Conference. That's in November. We're actually going next week to the Tennessee Kentucky Water Professionals Conference in Louisville. It was in Nashville last year, and we went. It was just full of excellent information, so it was close enough. They rotated around, so it was in Louisville this year, and we decided that that would be great. Monteith Luster and myself, we went to a 319 grant lunch and learn. We went out to one of the high schools in Williamson County where they had done some fantastic stormwater work and the way they designed their parking lot, the pond that they had a wetlands area. They had really gone to the nines with this new school, and so we got to tour that, look at that, find out how they finance that, what grants are out there for that, and then, how we could implement things like that, in the future here as well. So it was a really fantastic conference, it was just a one-day lunch and learn that Monteith and I went to in Franklin, Nolensville-ish, something like that. So going on illicit discharge and detection. So we depend very much on our citizens for that. So if you see somebody putting something down the drain that's not supposed to go down the drain, we implore you to contact us to let us know. My phone number, my email are both on the city website. You go to Department Stormwater, you'll see my picture and my information there. But we also have on the city website, you've probably noticed the little button that says file something like a complaint or concern. Something like, you click on that and it allows you can even do it anonymously if you want to. And you put down what you've seen or what you're concerned about. Even if it's a personal issue, like, my ditch is filled in, or if it's my neighbor's pouring XYZ in here, and you can put it in there, and then it actually goes to streets, it goes to code, so whatever department that you're having an issue with, you send it, it zaps it right to them, and so we get that in an email that says you have a notification, so we know to go out and look at this problem. So that's how, I feel like it's pretty easy to do that. So we really rely on our citizens to help us with our illicit discharge detection. Our construction runoff, so we have two streams in Laverne, Finch Branch and Hurricane Creek that are both impaired, both by E. coli and also sedimentation. Sedimentation, it impacts the banks, it impacts the microinvertebrates' abilities to reproduce and to live, which means the fish don't have anything to eat, and the fish swim away, and we don't want that. So what we do is, as new construction happens, we have a set of guidelines that they're required. If it's over an acre, they have to get a permit through the state, and then we actually enforce that permit. I have a pre-construction meeting with every new builder, when they come in, it's time to start XYZ project, they sit down with me and other department heads, and we have a pre-construction meeting. We go over our checklist and what their engineer has written up as far as their stormwater pollution prevention plan. I would say, this is what we're going to hold you to, and we can actually get stricter if we need to. If what works on paper isn't working in the field, we can ask you to add other measures. And so Scott goes out once a month. They are required by state law to have someone who comes out twice a week. And then we make sure, yep, they're doing their reports, and then Scott follows up once a month to do our inspection. And then if we have any large rains and we have some problem areas, he'll go out and do extra ones. Or if somebody calls and says, hey, they're building the XYZ store over here, and I got mud all on the road, then we'll go ahead and go on out and get that taken care of.
Questions, sir?
I was gonna say, so is it a scheduled inspection or is it like a random inspection once a month?
It's semi-scheduled. Basically how he'll do it is he'll say, you know, the first week of the month will be, commercial inspections, the second week will be, just so that he can keep track of it. They know about when we're gonna come. They're not like surprise drop-in inspections. But again, there's no problem finding out if there is an issue. There are plenty of people who are more than willing to let us know, you know, if we're having any issues. So, unless it's a very like flat, easy site, it's actually pretty rare that they only see Scott once a month. You know, if it's a site that has any kind of issues whatsoever, they'll most likely see him more. If he's out or if they're not complying with him, then that's where I step in. And use my big girl voice, you know, to try to, you know, get them to come on board a little bit better.
Very proactive.
And, yeah, so we try very hard to, and I feel like we do a really good job in that. There are always going to be failures. There's always going to be, you can only design for so much, and then nature decides to tell you who's really boss, and things don't go the way that you had them planned. But I think for the most part, we try to stay on top of it completely. And works great about it too. If he knows I'm going on vacation on this week, he makes sure he rearranges his scheduling things so that they all get done. And then we also have to do an initial, before a project starts, erosion control inspection, make sure they have all their measures of their silt fence and eels and everything in place, and they have their proper construction exit in place. And then at the end, before they get a C of O, one of the many checklists that they have to go through is ours to make sure everything's permanently stabilized and all that. So, and again, if he is out, I do them. And if both of us are out, Scott Anderson, my crew foreman, is actually certified to do them, and he can go out and do them if we need him to. And obviously, of course, Adam could do it too. So any discharge into our municipal separate storm sewer system, that's what MS4 stands for, by the way, municipal separate storm sewer system. So what that means is, like, you have your sanitary sewer, which goes and is treated before that water goes into our lake. A storm sewer system is not. What goes down that drain makes its way to the lake. So that's what our permit is talking about when it says MS4. So the only exempted discharges, other than just rain, that's allowed to go down there is potable water. Any water that you can drink is okay to go down the drain. Landscape, like if you water your yard, some of that water, that's fine. Diverted stream flows. Sometimes during construction, we have to temporarily divert streams while they're working. Groundwater, that's something we can't help. You'll see that actually it's not uncommon at all here in Laverne. People say, I don't know why, but I've got this spot in my yard that just stays wet all the time now. And you go out and they actually have groundwater that has popped up, you know, a little spring that has formed. And obviously, that's natural water and it goes where it wants to go. So, you know, that's exempted. Any springs, footing drains, crawl space pumps. You know, some people, they have a pump, you know, the water, that's just rainwater that's getting in there, so they're allowed to pump it right back out. And if they dechlorinate their pools, you can drain your pool into the storm sewer system. And obviously, firefighting activities is exempt from it because that's an emergency situation. So we aren't going to get in their way at all.
Is that for commercial properties also?
That's for everything. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we'll get. So I might get a call from Jane Doe and she says, you know, this XYZ restaurant, I think they're putting their grease down the storm drain. And she'll call and we'll go out. Yeah, they're held to the same. They get cited. They have to clean it up. And we've had a few of those types of things happen. So yeah, this is for everybody, business, individuals, so on and so forth. And the reason that that's so important, we mentioned these last year too, some of these stats, is a quart of oil is all it takes to contaminate 2 million gallons of water. So if you have a 2-liter bottle, one single drop of oil contaminates that water. So it's very dangerous to our aquatic life. And other chemicals like runoffs from, you know, people over-fertilizing their yard, washing their cars, just all kinds of different things. They can directly poison our aquatic life. Trash, it's very important not to put your grass clippings down the drain or your leaves, you know, regular leaves, and put them in the ditch, because that just causes the pipes and things to plug up, to stop up, and then that causes localized flooding. You know, I've never had flooding before. I'm like, yeah, it's because the guy 2 houses downstream of you just, you know, completely blocked the system and the water has nowhere to go. So we want to be very mindful of what we're putting in our ditches, in our inlets. The next thing that we talk about is our construction site. So I told you about that he goes out, he does that. Oh, we already did this part. I backed up. Post-construction. So that's when we do our, I told you we have to do final inspections. So we do that, and then if they have a device, we had one site recently that put in some permeable pavers. If they have a detention pond, now, of course, this wouldn't apply to businesses or homes that have been around for years and years, but now we have them do a maintenance letter. It says, this is what's required to keep this in working order, and you're saying, yes, I acknowledge this, and I'm agreeing that, yes, I'm going to keep this clean, I'm going to do these things to make sure this stays in good working order. We also have our Civic Plus. That's that site that I was telling you about when you click on complaints. That's what it goes into, is Civic Plus, and it sends us that email and says, hey, we've got a problem here. And then the way I keep up with it, my guys keep up with it, is we have internal software that we use called PubWorks. And so you call me, and I'm at 123 Elm Street, and my ditch is filled in, and it needs to be dug out or whatever, and I go look, and I'm like, sure enough, I put that into that system. It has the date that you called, your name, address, all that stuff. And then what we do is we prioritize the issues. Anything that's a public safety issue, obviously, is first place. Anything that's causing immediate property damage is second. And then from there, we pretty much, if everything's kind of on the same playing field, at that point, we just go oldest to newest, because that's just fair. So sometimes, I'll have people, they'll call and they have an issue, and then like a week later, I thought it was going to get fixed. I'm like, it will. Just our turnaround, we're not quite that awesome. We're awesome, but we're not quite that awesome. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So we did a boot camp here. That's something that is required for our insurance anyway. So Ms. Cheryl was kind enough to let me kind of jump in, and I got to do a little, like a few minutes telling a lot of our employees, but a lot of what I'm telling you about, careful what goes down the drain, and about different ways that pollution affects us and how we can, combat that. Our street department, they use the inmates. They do a litter and trash removal, so you see the guys sometimes on the side of the road picking up trash. And then what Harley does is she sends me those hours, and I log those hours. So every month I know that this day and this many people went out and they worked this many hours. And then of course we run our street sweeper. So when it's in good working condition, it's not pouring down rain, and it's not below freezing, we run our sweeper almost every day. On occasion, if we have a really big job, we'll pull the sweeper off to help with a different job. But typically, he's running every day. This past year, we hired a new gentleman named Alan Swain. He actually came to us from the streets department. He's fantastic. He does a great job. I never have to follow up with him or anything. He's always on the ball, so he does a great job.
Breathe.
Huh?
I said breathe.
Oh, I'm being as courteous as I know how to be. I'm getting you guys home.
Oh, I appreciate it, but he seems struggling over there, because I'm saying breathe.
No, you don't know me. This is just me.
This is pretty standard.
This is me.
Keep it on, Ms.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, moving on. But I appreciate your concern. Stormwater department, our staff. So our staff is a project engineer, that's me. Our inspector, that's Mr. Ward. We talked about him. Our labor crew foreman, that is Scott Anderson. We have 2 equipment operators now. Yes, we got a second one this year, and it has been a godsend. We have a street sweeper who we discussed, 2 laborers, and this year for the first time we had a summer intern. We had a gentleman, fantastic worker. He just finished his freshman year at Tennessee Tech, came on to do a summer internship. He's with us through the end of next week, will be his last week, and just a smart kid, a go-getter, a hard worker, and it was really awesome having him. He helped out a lot. Summer is our busiest time because that's when the weather is best and we can do the most work out, so he's just been great. He's been absolutely great. Our responsibilities within the department. So we keep up with the drainage system, so that's what my crew is for. So we dig up, ditches are going to fill in over time. Dirt moves, that's what it does. So we go and we dig those back up. Broken grates and inlets, we repair those. We open up pipes that have gotten blocked up. Culverts that have been damaged, we'll jack them up. If they're crushed, if it's a metal pipe that's crushed, we'll replace them when needed. So that's what we do. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. What we're not responsible to do is we don't fix sinkholes on private property. Well, we don't do that. We don't mow or weed eat the ditches. We clean them of obstructions and we will re-ditch them when needed, but we don't do landscaping. Those are owned by the property owners. If your property line, there's a ditch on your property, that's your ditch. You still have to mow it, weed eat it, whatever, just like you do your front yard. We don't do mosquito or other pest control. Sometimes people think that. They think we'll do spray for mosquitoes. But no, we don't do that either. Although I will recommend, we do recommend to a lot of people the dunks. So if you have little ponds and stuff near you, they work very, very well and they're not hazardous to pets. More responsibilities that we have is to manage this permit that we just talked about. We went over the 6 minimum measures that are part of the permit. That's my job at making sure we stay in compliance so we don't get in. We're subject to the same penalties, fines, etc. from the state that we could impose on any developer here in town. So we don't just preach it, we have to practice it. What we're looking to do in the future, we are looking to, Adam has been working and I've been helping and other people have been helping to put together a new public works specification, and that includes our stormwater specs, updating those. Once we have that ready to go, then we can use those. We're going to put a bid out to try to get a contract for as-needed jobs. So if we have some larger jobs that require heavier equipment than what we carry, or that it would take my guys, 3 weeks to do this job, but we can knock out 10 smaller jobs, in that time. We're hoping to put a contract in place so that we can get some help from a contractor to come in and do some of those jobs for us on an as-needed basis. We're working with LDA right now, working on a contract to do an overall drainage survey of the city as a whole, so that we have a really good idea of where, the drop of water lands here, what's the path it's taken. And then specifically in the Eastwood subdivision, we're doing a design level survey, because we're looking to try to make some changes out there to see if we can alleviate some of the drainage problems. That area just has so many problems, and it goes to a creek, and obviously you can't get any lower than the creek. I mean, you can't go past that. So we're actually getting a very specific, very detailed survey to see if there's any way we can kind of start from the creek and work back, if we can reroute things or do some things. If we have the fall to do it, the ability to do it, can we alleviate some of these problems, get some relief out there? So we're trying, again, I can't call it proactive because it's an issue that we've had since the 60s from what I'm told, but we're trying very hard to alleviate some of those problems. And we're also going to increase our monitoring. The state actually only requires us to monitor once a permit cycle for those contaminants, E. coli sedimentation, but we're wanting to increase that so that we can actually try to pinpoint where our sources of pollution are coming from. The E. coli, for example, is it animal-based? Is it human-based? If it's human-based, we have some failed septic systems or failed sewer storage, and it helps us to kind of zone in. We find those hot spots. We try to identify what the problem is and see what we can't do to help, say if it's failed septic. What can we do to partner with homeowners to help them to be able to repair or replace those systems, so that we can eliminate those pollutants. And these are all things that I'm really excited about. I'm really passionate about this, and I absolutely love what we're going to be doing in the next few years, and I hope you guys are excited about it too. So if you have any questions, now's the time.
Questions?
So would it be possible for this board to meet once a quarter instead of once a year?
I don't set that.
Oh, who
Is that a meeting?
I assume it's the board or
We're mandatory to have one meeting a year.
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah, we have a minimum
Necessary.
of once a year, and that's typically all we've ever needed to have. I think it's up to the board if you want to meet on a more regular basis.
Okay.
We'll definitely discuss that. Any other questions or comments? And since we have two new board members, if you would introduce yourselves, and we'll introduce ourselves, starting with you, ma'am.
All right, well, I'm Megan Wood. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We look forward to working together. Yourself, sir? One more time.
I'm Robert Joseph Sivak Jr. I go by Joseph, but some people call me Robert. It's one or the other.
Very good. We're slightly informal yet formal. Myself, I'm Earl Garvin. I've been on Stormwater for a few years, and everybody knows Mr. Matt Church. And Church.
Very
Just introduce
controversial
yourself.
figure, Mr. Church.
One of our aldermen. And thank you all everybody for your time, and hope everyone has a wonderful night. And thank you, Ms. Green, for the
Thank you.
great work. Thank you.
thank you.
Meeting adjourned.